on way back there because she was active working as the district office person for Congressman Richard White that I knew way back in the 70s, 60s and 70s and so on. And Enriqueta then became chair of the El Paso Democratic Party. Wow, you have been very active in all of these years. And then Olga Chavez, not too far back, I had Olga on our program, and Olga is in charge of the diversity program at El Paso Community College. And these three ladies have made wonderful differences in the city, county of El Paso, and even at the national level. So let's start over here, and we won't just divide it up one at a time. We can all join into this conversation. But Belen, at one point, was national president of LULAC, the Hispanic Advocacy Group. And before that, worked for the Customs Service, right?
Right.
And so she's been a wonderful advocate here in El Paso, got elected to our Board of Trustees. And why did you get involved as an active person, not just on a job out there, but involved in civic and service community activities?
Well, Leon, it's a long story, but you know, I come from a very large family. There were 10 of us, and my parents came from Mexico, and part of our relatives lived in Ciudad Juarez, and we went to visit them on Sunday. And so, of course, when we went across the bridge, we would say American, because we were U.S. citizens.
Right.
So we always thought, or at least in my mind, that Mexican was a citizenship. Anyway, after I graduated from high school, I decided that I would go seek employment. And having been taught very well at Bowie High School as to how I should dress and what I should do when I applied for a job, I set up appointments, put on my hat, my gloves, and one of the places that I went to, I encountered a receptionist. And when I told her I had an appointment with Mr. So-and-so, she says, "You must be mistaken because we don't hire Mexicans except for elevator girls and cooks."
Oh, my word.
And this person does not interview for those positions. You know, I couldn't know how to react other than to say, "I have an appointment, you just direct me in the right direction." Of course, I went up and I was almost in tears, but I held back because I thought it was an insult the way she talked to me. Anyway, I didn't get the job, but I decided that I would work very hard so that my children would never encounter such a situation.
That's a wonderful story. Keita, did you ever experience those kind of things?
I was very fortunate. I don't know why it slipped me, but I didn't. Thank God. I would have cried. I would have cried right there on the spot.
Yeah.
No, we came from very, very meager beginnings, and I was an only child. My father and mother divorced when I was 4. At that time, nobody got a divorce.
Oh, yes.
Hispanic people just didn't. I mean, we were so close-knit. But anyway, I grew up with my aunt, my grandmother, and my aunt was a school teacher. And she always was very active with the school, with the students. And I remember when she used to go somewhere, she'd ask me to go with her, and I was just a little kid. But all the students that she had taught were always looking up to her, and you'd see them on the street, "Oh, Miss Romo, you know," and she remembered everybody's name, their brothers, their sisters, their parents, and it was amazing. And later on, I remember that at home, she would get clothes, we'd get food, and although I consider ourselves poor, she would take them to some of her students' homes. And I said, "What are you going to do?" And she said, "We're going to take them because they need more than we do." And I learned from her and my grandmother that we never sold anything. Of course, what we had, nobody would, I thought nobody would want it. But to this day, I've never sold anything in my life of my things. And she always said, there's always somebody in more need, who need more than we do, and we need to share.
And we've had this discussion before, out there in the community. My role model was my mother, not my father, not my stepfather, but my role model was a strong, working mother. For a while, I was, a divorce in our family when I was about 11, and she remarried about 5 years later or something. And so she really made a difference. What about it, Olga? What about you?
Well, in hearing the other two ladies, I have to say my role model was also my mother and grandmother. My mother lived to 101 and just died a couple of years ago, and she was very inspirational to me. She came across from Mexico during the Mexican Revolution. Her and her family strived very hard to make things equitable and fair for whatever she was involved with. She was in the first graduating class of Bowie High School. Wow. She used to tell me several stories about her experiences and the importance of getting an education and how important education was to her, and walking maybe sometimes with hardly any soles in her shoes, but she wanted to make it there. And through that discussion with my grandmother and my mother, gave me the incentive to really make sure I went to school and that I could be a role model for students in general, but specifically for women. I went into guidance and counseling, and of course you deal with a lot of issues that women do deal with. So it was important to me to give back to our community, and so I guess my portion has been giving back to the community through the community college.
Okay. Now then, why was it that you chose your niche? Why did you get into the customs service and then get active with LULAC? We'll do it as each one of you. Why did you fall into politics? Why did you fall into education? You just gave us a little bit. Why did you fall into that?
Well, I started out working in an insurance company.
Okay.
With no benefits. And of course, after I worked there for a year, I thought this is going to last longer than a year. I started out working only to help save enough money to buy a house.
Okay.
Anyway, I saw this isn't going to be a year's thing, so I better look for something better. So I took the civil service entrance exam, and lo and behold, the next day I get a call from the immigration service. So I started my career in the immigration service with hopes of making it to the highest I could go.
Okay.
So I went in it as a clerk typist with the U.S. Immigration, and I had been there 2 months when my name was Belen Robles, so they brought me in as an interpreter for the immigration judges. And then I learned how limited my Spanish was, because when you are able to communicate in English and in Spanish, when you can't think of a word in Spanish, you bring it in the English.
It's called Tex-Mex.
Tex-Mex. So I decided, that's a very good opportunity for me to go up. So I went to expand my Spanish, and I did become the interpreter translator, even to the federal judges. And then I thought, this is as high as I'm going unless I can become an officer, because there's a limit to how high you can go in the non-officer position. So I tried to become an immigration inspector, but they weren't hiring women in the immigration service. So I took the civil service entrance exam, and lo and behold, I get hired as a customs inspector trainee.
Okay.
So I went on to customs, and it was the best thing I could have done, because that was really a very exciting position. I started as an immigration inspector trainee. I went on to a senior inspector, to a supervisor, and to a chief inspector, and up to acting District Director for Inspection and Control.
Good. How was it you fell into politics?
My husband worked for the post office, and he was involved with the unions. And so when there was elections, they would endorse somebody, and I would help. I would volunteer with the unions to address envelopes and do mailings and do phone calls, and that's how I got involved. And I was invited by a couple of organizations, Democratic organizations, to become a member. I did, and then I used to see Congressman White at various places, and sometimes we sit together, sometimes we talk and all of that. And then he called one day and invited me, would I work in his El Paso district office? And I said, me? You know, me?
Little me?
Little old me. And he said, yes. And I said, why? And he said, well, I need somebody. And I thought of you because I see you everywhere. Well, I wasn't everywhere, but, well, he was here. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't think I can do that job, because I had no idea what they did, really. And my husband said, don't say that. He says, tell him you'll call him back. Anyway, I said yes, and I said, if you don't like me, you can tell me. And if I don't like the job, I'll tell you. And right. I lasted for 15 years, and it was the best job I ever had.
He was a wonderful man to work with.
He was.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Olga, you've told us a little bit about yours already. Anything additional?
Well, just that I've enjoyed being at the college. I guess we've been colleagues a long time, Leon, and I had the opportunity of working with our very first president of the community college at the Logan Heights days, and all through now until, you know, these 5 campuses that we have, with the emphasis always of trying to, of course, my job changed from counseling into administrative early on, where right away I was involved in a women's conference called Adelante Mujer, and started with the Women's Center, continuing on from my predecessors, and looking at women's issues and daycare, equity, sex equity positions, counseling, personal counseling, all of that, and to try to achieve that students would come and work go to our school and be part of it.
Okay, let's then talk about advocacy on behalf of Hispanic females or females in general. Mm-hmm. You got into LULAC advocating for Hispanics, but also for female Hispanics.
Definitely. Well, at that time, Leon, when I joined LULAC in 1957, we had women councils and men councils. And so I joined the Women's Council number 9, mm-hmm. which is the oldest council of continuous service in LULAC since 1931, and it's still active. And of course, then my eyes were opened about how many challenges we had. And so pretty soon we elected a national president from El Paso, and he named me to his staff, and that put me into the road to the national scene.
Now, who was he?
Paul Lando.
Okay.
Paul Lando was elected national president in 1959.
Okay.
And then he appointed me to National Director for Women's Activities. After that, when William Bonilla was elected national president, I became national secretary, and I continued national secretary till 1969, at which I dare run for national president. which you know, it really is silly. But you know, I had been national secretary under different presidents, and you know how it becomes. The secretary is the one that starts working on policy issues and main communications with the Congress. And anyway, to make a long story short, Judge Hernandez, who was the last national president in '69 that I was the national secretary, he encouraged me to run for national president. which of course it was not timely. The convention was in Laredo, the heart of the machismo in Texas. So,
allow
And here comes Belen, right in the middle of it.
but anyway, then because I was doing LULAC at the same time that I was developing my career, at the same time that I was raising my family.
Yeah, okay.
So it was challenging. But anyway, I continued active, and I had various positions, National Vice President for the Southwest, Chair of the LULAC Educational Service Center, which is a national program that we created, and it's the focus of education. We established the National Scholarship Program. Wow. So, and I was on the board of SARE Jobs for Progress, also a national board for training and economic development.
You probably worked with Job Corps and people like that.
Yeah, it was quite very, very exciting times. There were a lot of challenges, but there were a lot of opportunities, and that really helped me tremendously in developing my knowledge of national issues, so that when I became national president, the first woman elected national president of LULAC in 1994, I was prepared very well to take the reins of the organization for 4 years.
Yeah, and you became a role model for the others coming up behind you.
There have
Keta,
been
same thing. What about it? When you got into this office and got into politics with Richard White, did you feel sometimes out of place going out there with all these guys out there smoking their cigars and talking politics and all this stuff? How did you really weave yourself into this culture?
Well, because I did represent him when he was not here in El Paso, doors opened, really, and I was very welcomed. But of course, I still had to work hard and make my way through, because, like you said, men smoking cigars and all of that, they weren't. But anyway, it was one of those things that you go in there and you try to represent your boss, right, the congressman, and they had a lot of respect for him. He was such a good person. He was so honest, so straightforward, so just a...
That made it easier for you.
Yes, it did. It was incredible how wonderful he was. Mm-hmm. And it just made my job very easy. People would come to the office every day, phone calls, when everybody wanted to meet with the congressman. And I would tell him, make a list and tell him, there's a lot of people who want to meet with you. And his time was so limited, and the days went so fast. The hours were so short. And he said, I've got all these things on Saturday. Tell them to come on Sunday. Let's see if they'll come. And they did. Mm-hmm. I used to have to put chairs out in the hall for people to sit down to wait for an appointment with 10 minutes with a congressman.
And now we have a situation out here with people demonstrating, and some congressmen are going into hiding, don't want to sit out there and talk to them. Okay, what about this advocacy issue? Now, you've been an advocate of diversity programs for a long time.
Yes, well, I've been an advocate for, first of all, students, and then issues relative to diversity have been very important to me. We have developed from the very beginning, as I had mentioned, committees or activities that involve these kind of things, as I've done for 15 years at Hispanic Heritage. We've promoted all kinds of issues. We've had all kinds of speakers, etc. Same thing for Black History. Not as long have I been responsible, but still we have made way there. And now even Women's History Month is very important to me. I tell you that a long time ago I ran the Women's Center, and now I continue to do activities on Women's History Month, which I will have in March. and it's been very important. I also want to say that I've been blessed to have been part of an institution where there were many women leaders. We had board members from the very beginning who were female and were supportive of education and women. We have, to the present day, we have 3 women on our board and are supportive of women's issues and education, along with our other board members. We have cabinet members who are quite a few females, administrators, quite a few females, faculty, quite a few females. So I'm surrounded by that type of environment, which is nurturing, because we still learn from one another.
And the key should always be excellence.
Exactly.
It's not just gender.
Exactly.
But what can this person contribute, whether it's a male or a female, in some of these positions?
And I do want to mention something, because although I'm not the education expert, I want to say that education is the basis of everything that we are about. You know, to get a job, you need a good education. To be able to communicate or be on committees, you need to have some education behind you. Education is the foundation, and so that's why we here at the community college encourage people from all walks of life, from all genders, to be educated and to learn from others.
Right.
So.
Over the years, we've heard the machismo issue about you women should stay in the kitchen and fix the meals and have our clothes ironed for us when we're ready and all this kind of stuff. And yet you fought against that stereotype. All 3 of you fought against that stereotype, right?
Correct.
Yes.
And we're successful at fighting against that. You started to say something on
No, I said, and still, and continue.
that. Still.
The thing is that the responsibility of the home usually falls on the woman, irregardless of whether it's a 2-family
Right.
home or a single parent. It seems to be unspoken that the woman will take care of the children, or the responsibility of getting the groceries, or the responsibility of tasks. And the male counterpart may be willing to do that, but it always seems somehow that it ends up on the
I consider
woman's
men
lap.
like that as treasures that will support their wife.
Exactly.
in doing
There
this.
are some.
My wife went off to summer school twice and left me with 3 children here in El Paso when they were young.
Well, you know, I have to say that I feel extremely blessed, because my husband has been very supportive.
That's a key.
You know, you have to find a way. Getting it to work takes a lot of work.
You have to finesse it.
You finesse it. You know, when I've had some all major decisions are made by both of us.
Right.
But the important thing is that if it's going to be a decision that will put a lot of responsibility on him, then it is worked to where it is his decision that I should do it. So once he recommends that it's the best thing for me and for us, then he knows that if he has to take care of when we had the children at home, if he had to stay with the children, well, he was the one that recommended that I should do it. Mm-hmm. And so he doesn't complain.
You turned out successful after all. Well, good.
I have to say that about my husband, so that he won't think that I'm talking about him, but he
Right.
is as well.
Well, mine always supported me, and as a matter of fact, he was the one that encouraged me to take the job with Richard White,
Right,
because
right.
I wasn't sure I wanted to do that. I didn't know it. I could, and then he reminded me. He says, "You're going to be doing there helping people what you do with LULAC. You're always helping people," and it worked out.
Oh, that's great.
Fortunately.
Not long ago, I was sitting in a Subway restaurant over on Yarborough Drive, and a man comes in and he sees me and walks over and says, Blevins, I want to thank you. You saved my sister's marriage. She's having her 40th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
I said, oh my gosh, what's the situation? He said, she was in your class years ago, and her husband kept trying to get her to drop out of school. She wanted to be a nurse. And they're still together, their 40th anniversary coming up. That made me feel so good sitting there to think, we crossed paths from things I'd said in class and so on. And actually, it was through her father who asked, he was in my class too, that asked if I would be involved in some family counseling with them. And those are the little treasures that we have if we are sensitive to other people's needs and are willing to spend some of our time to meet those needs. And that's what I consider being a successful teacher.
Well, you know, I'm very pleased that here in El Paso we do have women that have been able to rise above in the corporate sector. We have Mary Kipp, who is the president of the El Paso Electric Company,
Yes, okay.
an attorney by profession. We have a nurse that went up to be the president of the marketing department for the hospitals of Providence,
Okay.
Sally Hurd Dute.
Okay.
And then in the non-profit area, we have a very good friend of ours that became the CEO at the YWCA, Sylvia Acosta. Sylvia is a local girl that grew up, and she got her doctorate degree out of New Mexico State and came back to be in charge of the largest YWCA in the country, and that's here in El Paso.
Success stories. Last words? What do you got?
Oh, I just read this afternoon, right before coming, and I can't remember her full name, but the LULAC national president congratulated Jennifer, I don't know.
Murguia.
No. It starts with a K. Her last name, I don't know if it's Korn or
Well, that's all right,
what.
but a
anyway,
success, okay.
he congratulated her because she just was appointed as one of the assistants for President Trump to be in his administration, to serve in his administration. So being a woman, very active in LULAC, he sent his congratulations, and for everybody in LULAC in the country to know that she had, one of our own has been appointed.
Okay, good.
Well, I just want, as I've said before, that a lot of people who've passed our doors as administrators or board of trustees are role models for our community, and they have been successful. These women, along with so many more that have been part of what I've been involved with or the college has been involved with, have been our role models.
Well, thank you for being here, ladies.
Thank you
Glad
for
I'm glad
inviting
you
us.
came to
Thank
El Paso. And thank you for watching another program called Perspectives El Paso. I'm Leon Blevins.